A somber but I think joyous in many ways show today, celebrating Her Majesty the Queen with our good friend Andrew Pindar, who's standing by in Cornwall, not in his beloved home today of Scarborough, and he's going to help lead the tribute to Her Majesty the Queen on today's show. John Emmett saying good evening from a rather wet and windy. Yeah, they're not even, it was unraceable today in the Netherlands, at least in Scheveningen, where John is. Yeah. Doesn't look like they'll be able to race tomorrow. Hi, Gordon Smith from Denmark. Ed Worley. Ed, we're going to do your segment next Tuesday, your America's Cup trivia question. Thank you. Good afternoon, Peter Taylor in New York. Greg Phillips, still in, he's in Quebec City now. He was in Montreal, I think. Aussie abroad. Hi, Julie Aarons in sunny Cleveland. Paul Homchick. Yo, Jody Shields. It's beer o'clock early in the morning down there in Sydney, 0601. Tier de Jong is in SoCal. John Lamberts Van Buren is also in the Netherlands. As we get this one off the dock.
8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
Well, happy Friday, everybody. It's show number 553. It's Friday, what is it, Julie? The 16th of September?
Right.
16th of September.
16th.
I have to look in close at my graphics there. Julie, I trust you are well.
I am.
Any hot tips before we get going? We're going to have our first winter storm here in September. We're going to have it on Sunday, the last day of the Rolex Big Boat Series.
We're going to look like the Netherlands on Sunday.
I think. And it is breezy over where John is. I've texted back and forth with John today, John Emmett, of course. We are live once again from Studio B here at the Beach Street Yacht Club in San Francisco's beautiful Marina District. We want to welcome all of you to, this is a special show. We're, as you can see from the title graphic, delighted to have Andrew Pindar with us. He is, as I said, is going to help us with this tribute to Her Majesty the Queen, and who led a sailing family, led arguably the best sailing nation in the world for, 70 plus years. And she will no doubt be missed. A nice comment already from Julie Aarons about your scarf.
Oh, good.
That is quite a scarf. Appropriate colors. Her Majesty was so colorful. Ralph Roberts. Hello, Ralph, down in Takapuna in New Zealand near Auckland. Thank you for honoring our Queen. He must not be a Republican. A lot of Republicans in New Zealand, few in Australia. Christopher Gillingham likes your scarf too, but Hamish Ross is welcome back. Hamish, nice to have you back on here.
Oh, indeed.
From the South Seas, he says. Pedro Foiling Sailor also in Sydney, where it's just after 6 in the morning. Saturday, a great day to be alive. And remember those that have gone before us. Rest in peace, Queenie. Ted Ryman in Cape Town. Fritz Mueller down in Fritz, did I say Mueller or Mueller? Probably Mueller here in the U.S. Guten Tag, Tier de Jong is saying, and on and on and on. Julia, part of what's nice about this today is that people, you'll see when we get to the personal remembrances, right. People are sending in things about their mom and dad and their dad, Emmett and others. It's just really nice recollections about obviously a wonderful person.
And their family. And
their families, meaning Her Majesty the Queen's family.
Yeah.
And also our own families.
Yes.
You know, the comment my mother made about watching on a couple shows ago about watching Her Majesty during World War II when she was Prince Elizabeth,
right.
Doing the radio broadcast
right.
with her even younger, with I guess Margaret, right, her younger sister.
Yeah.
Let's get into it. We always like to start with a little pre-start segment. Castle Cove Sailing Club there in Weymouth, a nice photo courtesy of John. And as you know, Her Majesty is laying in state. In fact, there is a live shot from Westminster Hall where she's been lying in state for the past couple of days and will continue through the weekend. Andrew's going to take us through all of that, and we'll go through the schedule of the funeral and then get to his recollections, because he's been an officer really of Her Majesty's in Scarborough for quite some time. Beautiful, beautiful ceremony, somber, fabulous stuff there in Westminster Hall, which, as you all probably know, was one of the largest spaces in Europe for a long time, maybe still is. with that, why don't we go bring in Andrew? Welcome, Andrew. You are not in Scarborough, but in Cornwall. Welcome to the show.
Yeah, I decided to head south for the winter, and so I'm down here in Cornwall for the weekend.
But you got a wedding, right?
Yeah, it's a friend of ours is getting married tomorrow in just outside Port Isaac in North Cornwall. So we've been in the car for 9 hours today, driving down from North Yorkshire, and here we are in sunny North Cornwall as opposed to sunny Scarborough.
Well, welcome. Thanks very much for joining us. As you probably everyone on here knows, Her Majesty's state funeral is Monday, and we'll get to all that in a minute with Andrew. And all of you, too. If anybody who didn't have time to send in a recollection, by all means, put it in the comments, and we'll get to that between Julia and myself. I want to thank Staff Commodore Ken Glidewell, who was our guest on Tuesday previewing the Rolex Big Boat Series, which is going on out in the bay behind us. Been a breezy couple of days. It was breezy yesterday, and it looks like breezy again today before it gets stormy on Sunday. But just a program note, no show a week from today. We'll do a show next Tuesday, but a week from today, I'm up at Tinsley Island there in the graphic. That's the island up in the Delta, owned by St. Francis Yacht Club, used for retreats. They had the ladies' retreat, the women's retreat last weekend. They had the men's retreat next weekend, annual affairs, and enjoyed by families pretty much year-round. And we're going to be joined at the Stag Cruise, as it's called, by Andrew McIrvin. So the Secretary General of the IMA is one of our VIP guests, along with Commodores, probably from any number of your clubs. We invite a dozen or so Commodores, Julia, from around the world. Royal Hong Kong, I think Royal Thames, Chicago. Paul Blank's coming up from Balboa Yacht Club and on. No show next Friday, because I'm producing the member show up there at Tinsley Friday night. I'll have a lot on. Julia, do you know what day it is today?
Yes.
There's your first clue.
It's Mexican Independence Day.
It is?
Yes.
Well, that's not why I have grapes in the shot. Look at Pindar. You got him smile out of him. Andrew, when you came on, she said, he's just always got such a nice kind of cherubic smile. He looks like a happy man. Is that true?
No, I think they call it at home a chipmunk smile.
Well, this is in part in your honor because we know you are an aficionado of wine, and this is the International Day of this particular grape. Do you know, Andrew or Julia, what that is?
Looks like a cab, is it?
Close, but no cigar.
No cigar.
It originated in Spain.
Aha.
And it's known in Spain as Garnacha.
Grenache.
Well done. I think you got Ted Ryman says no alcohol day. Hamish Ross, viticultural day. Those are Concord, Sanchez. It is Grenache. It's in Spain. It's called Garnacha. I was going to give you that clue because you know from the hue, from the color of the wine, perhaps that it's a little lighter, a little fruitier, and it's a higher alcoholic content than most. And today is indeed International Grenache Day, which original home is Spain. The grapes are from España. It's known as Grenache in France. And how do you say this in Italian? Cannonau? Cannonau? I guess. And the fruit, spice, and elevated alcohol in Grenache pairs well with spiced and herb-heavy dishes. And I can tell you that when we lived in Spain, the wine was not only plentiful, but it was inexpensive. We could get a good bottle of wine down at the grocery store for €3, €4, €5, and I think you still can. Monica Diaz, I checked in. She's not going to be on the show today, but she said hi. She loves Grenache, Garnacha. So we dedicate this segment to her. And we did drink a fair bit of the good Spanish reds, and especially and including Garnacha, the almost 9 years that Leslie, Meg, and I lived there. So yes, Stingray saying we reached Drinking Illustrated earlier than usual today, but in honor of Andrew, in honor of Spain, and this is International Grenache Day. So enjoy it, welcome, and happy Grenache Day if you're speaking French. Let's get to the starting line where we have that nice photo of the Star Worlds. We'll get to that in a sec. A little bit. See, I got rid of that horn, Julia. Horn, I think that bugs me. But let's put John Emmett's report on at the top of the show, as we usually do, reporting in from the Netherlands, John Emmett.
Hi, Tom, Julia, all the FOSI. You join me on the water again. I actually bought a new gimbal for my video camera. That's a Ronin RS3 Pro, but the waves are so big, it just couldn't seem to cope with it. So yeah, I've had to put my camera away. I'm back on my little pocket gimbal, which has saved the day more than once. So very quick session. This is actually the day before racing, because I think Friday could be a bit wet. You'll see some of the marks going past me in the background. It's been a really big wave day, and it's only going to get bigger. That's why I'm not sure how easy it will be for me to get footage. Sailors are now sailing in back to the harbour, so I'm just surfing in between the fleets, and it's amazing that they're going so fast downwind. It looks quite light downwind because the apparent wind is meaning the sails are almost not filling. So yeah, it's what Ilka sailing is all about. There's just something very special about sailing boats through waves. You'll see the fleet starts to appear behind me as I sail in, trying not to run any of them over. So today is a very special day for the show, because it's a huge event celebrating the life of our Queen. When I say our Queen, for the UK Queen, it's difficult to know what to say, and it's somebody who's lived a life of service. And whilst there may be some members of the royal family who haven't covered themselves in glory, I think the Queen has really been an example to many people, as indeed was the Duke of Edinburgh, who was politically known for some of his gaffes. But I mean, the Duke of Edinburgh scheme is something which helped so many young people, and it's something I did myself, just to try and increase people's learning. Learning is not just books, it's not just going to university and getting a degree, it's life education. And there's a lot of projects that the royal family are involved with, and sailing has been a big part. Duke of Edinburgh used to race, and it's just the end of an era. I mean, a 70-year reign by the monarch, I can't actually see that's ever going to happen again. And we need to spare a thought for Charles at this time. I mean, both Charles and Camilla has lost somebody who's been a big part of their life. They're in their 70s, and the schedule that they're doing now would make a young couple feel absolutely exhausted. I mean, the monarchy is something that's sort of left over from a bygone age, but I do feel they do an awful lot of good. And I think somebody like Ben Ainsley has probably used far better words than I have for what the Queen means. And there's lots of nice touches going on at the moment, so I'm sure people will be able to give some specific anecdotes. And I think we just need to think, regardless of our beliefs on many things, that we should have some sympathy for family loss, as well as the amazing work as a monarch. And that's it. I hope to join you on the show. We'll be racing 5, maybe 25 knots. So hopefully I will come back with the same number of sailors as I left. Emerging Nations programme is all about getting sailors on the water from countries that you wouldn't expect to necessarily see sailing. Quite a few of these are, I guess, part of the Commonwealth, and the countries that don't have the budget to have their own programme, their own coaches, their own staff. So it's bringing a lot of people together. You'll see we're getting pretty close to the harbour now. It's funny, I always think you have very poor ratio in just about any boat with the amount of upwind you have to do to just get a few minutes of downwind. Hopefully none of the sailors are going to capsize right in front of me. Slightly distracted whether my Ilka 6 sailor can overtake the Ilka 7. See you later. Bye for now.
Yeah, nice video. If you recognize some of those Olympic codes on those sails, ROU's Romania, of course, and John is there coaching in the Developing Nations program. Nice program by World Sailing. I noticed Mozambique and I think Lithuania. What is LCA? Does anybody know what the Olympic code LCA is? I'm looking over here on that one, Romania, of course, and he's Latvia. I think that was one. LAT, St. Lucia. John Emmett is saying, thanks, John. He's, of course, would know. He's there coaching him and doing a great job from what one hears. Now, and talking with John this morning, Andrew, I'm going to come to you as well. If you can get yourself centered up in that 3-shot. There you go. Thank you. And your mic's up. It is, and I just saw a comment, in fact. Didn't we see a comment above? Yeah, from John Lamberts Van Buren. Weather in Holland today was horrific.
Yes.
Some very, very serious squalls. As we say here, and I won't try to pronounce it in Dutch, but the clay is blown off the dike.
Yeah.
And I talked to John. They did not race today, and tomorrow's the last day of the regatta. He doesn't think they're going to be able to race tomorrow either.
That's too bad.
Because it's just too windy and rough. But so the kids are getting a nice experience nonetheless, and they are at the venue, Andrew, for next year's World Sailing World Championship. And this is the kind of the test event, right?
Yes, of course, the youths were there just a few weeks ago as well. So the Scheveningen and the Hague is really laying it on at the moment. Indeed,
and of course that report from John is in Scheveningen. I'm starting to be able to pronounce that. Help me,
Better,
John.
better.
John Lamberts Van Buren on that, and we will. It doesn't look like we're going to have much more from John because it is so windy over there. But we have a nice memory from John about Her Majesty the Queen, so let's get on with that. And Andrew, you are an officer of the Queen in the North Yorkshire Lieutenancy, and maybe you can explain this to us.
Yeah, part of of course, you still have militias in the United States, I think, but as part of the way that the UK used to be run. There were militias in each of the counties, and that changed with the way that we changed our constitutional monarchy. But they remained in place in each of the counties a Lord Lieutenant that would be the monarch's eyes and ears and representative in each of those counties. And each of the Lord Lieutenants then has a Vice Lord Lieutenant. And under the Vice Lord Lieutenant, there are a number of Deputy Lieutenants who are the Queen's and now the King's representatives in the county.
Is it a busy job for you? Do you have a lot to do? Is it mostly honorary, or is it do you get pinged on a lot by the constituency?
Well, it depends, and you can do as much or as little work as you wish, really. But the joke used to be that the most arduous thing about being a deputy lieutenant was going to the funerals of other deputy lieutenants. But that's not the case nowadays, and increasingly the lieutenancy is being encouraged to be very active across society, and so that's certainly our Lord Lieutenant, who's a woman in North Yorkshire, Jo Ropner. She's very active. As was Jamie Craythorne. Lord Craythorne was the Lord Lieutenant before her, and very active Lord Lieutenants, and very keen to make sure that the Lieutenancy is doing significant work within society, within each of the counties.
Well, there's a pretty nice, really, statement about you, tribute almost to you on the website that I picked off this morning, and I'll read it because I know it'll make you blush, right? Mr. Andrew Pindar, OBE, and I assume DL means Deputy Lieutenant.
It does. Yeah.
Scarborough native Andrew Pindar is married to civil engineer and marine biologist Caroline. I think that's the first time we heard that, Julia.
Mm-hmm.
With a number of business interests, he is best known for being involved internationally with the sport, pastime, and business of sailing. In particular, Andrew is at the forefront of the drive for equality in the sport, promoting the interests of female athletes and those with disabilities around the world. He is a board member of various charities, including the Magenta Project, an ambassador of Sail for Cancer, and the Offshore Doubles Organization. In November 2020, his work was acknowledged with the President's Award by World Sailing, the sport's governing body, as you all know. In 1999, he was recognized for his contribution to the graphic arts industry with an honorary professorship from the University of the Arts in London. He was appointed ADL in 2004, and 2009 he was awarded an OBE for his service to society and industry. And Andrew, the only nit I can pick with that is they didn't say that you're a FOSI. And a regular guest here on Sailing Illustrated. Let's move on to the Queen, and this is a video that was sent in by Ted Ryman about the queue. John commented on it when I was texting with John this morning. It's over 3 miles long. I guess it's reached the Tower Bridge from the BBC earlier today, stretching along the south bank of the Thames. And just, I guess, not a surprise, eh, Andrew? Hundreds of thousands are expected to pay their respects, and I guess that was probably fully expected. Is that right?
Yeah, and I think there was an anticipation that there will be a huge number of people turn out to pay their respects. The queues, as we've been driving the 9 hours from Yorkshire today, we've been hearing the queue lengths go up and up until the point where they had to say, please stop for a while. I think the queues have gone to 6 or 7 miles or something, maybe beyond that.
Mm-hmm.
They're certainly anticipating something in the excess of 750,000 people will file past her coffin.
Well, that is, I guess, as I said, not a surprise. She's revered by people in your country and throughout the Commonwealth and throughout the world. As we go back live to Westminster Hall, and I guess, I don't know how often they change these guards, but I guess one of them keeled over yesterday. No surprise either. Arduous duty.
Yeah, in fact, I have a story about a comment Her Majesty made to me about a soldier fainting. If you want me to tell you that story.
By all means.
Well, a few years ago, I had the pleasure and the honour of having lunch with Her Majesty, literally in a pub 5 miles away from where I live. And she was in Scarborough, in the Scarborough area, visiting her land. She what's called the ancient inheritances, because the monarch also has a title of the Duchy of Lancaster, and the reigning monarch has what's called life interest in those ancient inheritances. And they were looking at she's coming to visit her land in what's called the North Yorkshire Survey, which is a swathe of land and property. Anyway, I was invited to have lunch with her, and literally she was sitting next to the landlady of the Blacksmith's Arms pub, and we were making small talk. She was a bit cross because on the way in from having various presentations before that, behind the pub, the Duke of Edinburgh had gone into the bar and ordered himself a pint of beer, and Her Majesty came through into the dining room, and I was honoured to be on her table, along with the landlady of the pub, who was the same age as the Queen, actually. And anyway, she was saying, "Oh, where is Philip? You know, will he come on? We're waiting for lunch. It's been a long day already." Anyway, we sat down for lunch and were making small talk, and she was very cross because that morning there'd been a picture in the Daily Telegraph newspaper of a soldier, you know, the Busby at the Guards outside Buckingham Palace, who'd just come back from active duty overseas. And anyway, there we go. There's a Busby with the with the Busby hat, and one of them had fainted, and the Daily Telegraph had published the photograph of him having fainted, and she was particularly cross that the newspaper had done this to one of her soldiers.
Days like today might be good to have that hat on, but during the middle of the summer, I feel so sorry for those guys.
The Welsh Guards. In fact, Hamish Ross, who's commenting on here, Hamish sent me a graphic with all the different guards, and I didn't stick it in the show because I thought it was, it was a little too. Look at that. Fantastic pomp and ceremony. You Brits know how to do this better than anybody.
Absolutely.
But I didn't put it in because I thought it was a little too much, as we'd say here in the States, inside baseball. But amazing stuff. Welsh Guards, Hamish is saying. Maura Stevens, who's up in Canada, saying Canada has created a national day of mourning and remembrance for Her Majesty on Monday, which of course is a funeral. Many of the provinces are holding services to honor her and her legacy. Stingray saying, what a great story, Andrew, that is about the lunch with the Queen.
Yeah.
Hamish saying they change the guards every 20 minutes, he's saying, which makes sense.
Yes.
John Lammerts Van Buren in the Netherlands saying Monday the Royal Regatta starts in Cannes down in south of France. I bet the Froggies will try to do something pro-monarchy. If so, that will be a first since 1848 when the what Republic?
The Second Republic.
Second Republic was established. Replying to Gordon Smith, Gordon stinks donking. Gordon said it's also blowing dogs off chains in Denmark, same front that has gone through Holland. And then you can shake your finger at that comment by Stingray. We're trying to be serious here about this show and to reflect the somberness of this occasion. And let's take you through now, and with the help of Andrew. In fact, Andrew can lead the way here on what is the procedure on Monday. Courtesy of the BBC, apparently at 10:44 Monday morning, the coffin leaves Westminster Hall and winds through Parliament Square and gets over to the Abbey approx 11 a.m. Now, interestingly, and this is apropos the naval nature of this show and of our celebration for Her Majesty, the state gun carriage will carry the coffin. The gun carriage was used for the funeral of George VI, the Queen's father, pictured there in the little inset. It will be drawn by 142 sailors, and you can see the uniform that will be worn by the sailors marching with the coffin. Andrew?
Yeah, well, of course, everything's to the minute, planned and organised, and they've been planning this for many years, including Her Majesty had full involvement in the planning process as to what she wanted to do and how she wanted to come across to the people. So she wanted to mix the old with the new, with her way of reaching out to everybody. But I think from memory, the last filing past her coffin is at 6:30 on Monday morning. I think that's the last time anybody could go and do that. So there are a lot of people still to get past. The waiting time currently is standing at in excess of 24 hours. And the people
Excuse
are doing
me? 24 hours?
24 hours, yeah. And that's people from all over the world who are doing that. Everybody has the right to do that. And so that she's made that everybody has that access. And that's whether you're an ordinary man on the street or whether you come from a famous background. David Beckham, the soccer player, was started queuing at 2:00 this morning, and he would have been waiting out in line for 12 hours plus himself today. So people have really showing their mark of respect.
Well, it's amazing. I guess it's open 23 hours a day, and then they must take an hour off to clean things up and reset the setup. There's some visiting dignitaries, obviously. Julia?
I was wondering why the sailors were used, and Hamish says the Royal Navy sailors were first used to pull the gun carriage in Queen Victoria's funeral when the horses became unsettled.
So there's another connection back to the America's Cup era, I suppose. Well, after, 40 years after the America's Cup, 50 years.
I'm sure Hamish will be entirely correct, of course, but it might also be that the Navy is known as the senior service of the three services, so that could be part of it.
Mm-hmm. Good to know that.
Well, we see that, I see that Monica's checked in. Yes, we've honored you, Monica. We dedicated that section of the show. And happy Garnacha Day. Carrying on then, and Stingray's asked a question. So after the funeral, then the body, the coffin, leaves Westminster at 12:15. So that's an hour and 15-minute service, I guess. Goes through the Mall and around Buckingham Palace, and then over to Hyde Park Corner.
Yep.
And arrives at Wellington Arch at 13, and then from there they go out to Windsor.
Yeah.
From Wellington Arch out to Windsor, and it's there that the commitment, the interment, as we might call it, that expects to take place between a little after 3, a little after 1500, and then 1600 in St. George's Chapel. And it's in the chapel where the coffin will enter for the final of the committal service, and that's private, of course, of the family. St. George's Chapel is the church regularly chosen by the royal family for weddings, christenings, and funerals. It is where the Duke and Duchess of Sussex, that's Harry and Meghan, got married, and where the Queen's late husband, Prince Philip's funeral was held. Andrew.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it was of her various homes, I think she had particular affection for Windsor.
Luca Craig saying, not as prestigious as Andrew, but shook Prince Charles's hand when he and Camilla visited ETNZ and had the America's Cup and sailors outside the base. Yes, for a meet and greet. I have a photo of that, actually, with a massive number of public like myself. Well, I actually have a photo of when Her Majesty was there in, I think 2002. And we'll get to some of those photos. Shall we do that now? And anyone wants to chip in a story, by all means. I mean, we had, Andrew, you were probably there. This was back 25 years ago. There was, and the RYA held a reception at Buckingham, and Her Majesty was there, and we all filed in and filed past her, and we were very lucky then. But it was her husband, and of course Princess Anne, with whom we've had a lot more contact. I'm sure you too, and probably everybody on here. But this was a nice article from about a year ago, Boat International, which I noticed they updated in the last few days on their website. Yachting Royalty, the best pictures of Queen Elizabeth II at sea. And this, you know that yacht, Andrew, Julia?
That's Britannia.
That is indeed. That's Britannia. Throughout her time on the throne, Boat International saying Queen Elizabeth II has spent plenty of time on board boats in her role as Commander-in-Chief of the British Royal Navy. Maybe that's the other reason that the naval officers are towing.
Yeah.
Towing her. That's maybe not the right word. We wound up in this article the best photos of the Queen at sea throughout her lifetime and during her 70-year reign as British monarch. Stop me, Andrew, anytime.
No, you're doing well, Tom. You're a true royalist. You're a good man.
This photo, the yacht, can you identify that? Anybody? The yacht and the year?
There's the Queen Mother, who's talking to the two chaps. I don't know who they are because I can only see the back of their heads. Oh, there you go.
1937 at Spithead. Where's Spithead?
Spithead is I think where the Naval Review would be from on the south coast, coming out east of the Solent.
Down near Portsmouth.
Yeah, and I can't remember that part of the south coast geography, being a Yorkshireman adequately, but it's that's where the fleet review, the massive fleet review, when the Navy was huge. So that's where they would have been doing the fleet review, I should think.
Well, that's among the earliest photos of then Princess Elizabeth on May 20, 1937. And Gordon Smith had that right in the 30s. Launched in 1899, His Majesty's yacht in those days, Victoria and Albert, measured 128 meters and was in service from 1901 to 1939. This picture shows a young Princess Elizabeth with her parents, King George VI and Queen Elizabeth, the Queen Mother, you had her identified, in conversation with the Duke of Kent and Lord Louis Mountbatten.
Mountbatten. Yeah.
That's who that was. Now, can you ID that picture, anybody? That is in, I tried to involve some of our countries where I know we have a lot of viewers. This is Princess Elizabeth aboard the New Zealand four-masted bark, is it Pamir? Pamir, I guess, Pamir, in London's Shadwell Basin on March 3rd, 1948. Built by Blom and Voss, and launched in 2005, Pamir was seized as a war prize by the New Zealand government.
Yes.
During World War II, and would go on to be the last commercial sailing ship to round Cape Horn. Here, the princess is seen at the helm talking to Captain Collier, presumably a Kiwi. Another photo. Anybody ID that? This is a year after her coronation. Looks like she's got is that a video camera already, or just a?
Well, it's not in Cape Town, is it?
No, but this is in Australia. A year after her coronation. Yeah. Her Majesty became the first and so far the only reigning British monarch to visit Australia during her royal tour. On February 20th, 1954, the Queen sails into Hobart Harbor, of course, in Tasmania, with her husband, Prince Philip, on board the SS Gothic, which was originally launched as a passenger cargo ship in 1947. Gothic was designated the royal yacht for the tour. So there's an Australian look. Mm-hmm. This may be my favorite picture. She doesn't look particularly pleased or happy in this one. Any idea where this took? Hamish probably knows where that was taken.
But Tahiti, is it somewhere?
Close.
Fiji.
Tonga?
Tuvalu. Between October 26 and 27, that's fairly recent. Well, 82, that's 40 years ago. Queen Elizabeth visited the South Pacific island of Tuvalu. Is that how you pronounce that? For which she is the reigning monarch. During the tour with the Duke of Edinburgh, she was carried around on traditional ceremonial canoes and later dined on local dishes at a banquet. But I mean, Andrew, what a great sport she was to do all of the local customs, to go boating, to go yachting. Amazing.
Yeah, well, she was absolutely game. So she, as you mentioned, very brave as a horse rider, as a horsewoman. She, I think she just was out there as Princess Anne, the Princess Royal, followed in her footsteps. If you can ride a horse over fences and gates and everything else, if you're prepared to do that, I think you're prepared to just do about anything.
Mm. Mm-hmm. Yeah, Steve Gruber is saying, is that a 16 millimeter camera? I think it's before 8 millimeter cameras, right? Maura Stevens saying that the Royal Mail did a wonderful tribute to Her Majesty, showing all the stamps on which she has appeared. Nice. Well, now we get a little bit into sailing. This, as far as I could find, and I scoured the internet, this is the only sailing photo I could find of her. There's lots of Prince Philip, of course, and I don't know, other than to say that I found it on Live Sail Die, who did a nice tribute to her. That's the Kiwi website. Did a very nice tribute to her, and I guess this is Philip with Her Majesty, and I don't know who the other gentleman must be, Phillips or her sailing master at the time. Does can anybody help ID that photo? Andrew?
I've got no idea.
No, I don't either. But that's said to be her sailing, and then of course we know that Prince Philip did a lot of sailing and was a famously good sailor and fun sailor. Here he is with Uffa Fox from left to right. And then Prince Charles, now King Charles III, and their sailing master at the time. And that's Blue Bottle. That's the dragon. That was the gift from the Dragon class to Her Majesty and to Prince Philip. Blue Bottle K192. John Lambert's got that right. And presumably in the Solent, maybe during Cow's Week. And then, as you mentioned, Andrew, the Princess Royal, Princess Anne, is sailing. I'm not sure what kind of boat that is. It looks dragon-esque as well. I'm not 100%.
It does, yeah.
At Royal Leamington, and she's helming. And as you all know, she's a very good equestrian rider. She's a very good sailor. She's president of honor of the Royal Yachting Association and probably any number of yacht clubs by now. And I keep saying I think she's the brightest of the whole group. Maybe it's because she's the least of the kids. It's because she does the sailing. Is that true, Andrew? Does that make one bright? Or do you have to be bright to go sailing?
I think you have to be lucky to go sailing.
That is for sure.
Yeah.
Prince Edward, you see that comment, Julia? Prince Edward is also a sailor. Morris Stevens is saying. Were you going to read that?
No, I was going to say that she was still riding side saddle in her 80s.
The Queen.
The Queen.
Yeah. Yeah, that's also Dragon. John Lamberts Van Buren is confirming. Well, now we get into some personal remembrances. This, everyone knows, is John Emmett, and he sent this morning with his mom. It's a photo, fairly recent photo of Marilyn, his mother. And his mother wrote, I guess, to John for us. She said, I have written in the book of condolence for the Queen, and this I think just this morning, if not maybe last evening, but where's St. Swithins, Andrew? Any idea?
No.
John will know. It's maybe a school or something.
But John's from Kent, so he's from, I think, towards Canterbury, so it might be that way over.
Only came across, this is John's mother, only came across her twice really in my life. Once I was at primary school and the children had to curtsy when I did. She must have been leading the way. The other was when John, and John says he doesn't remember this, the other was when John was at primary school and we went to meet her in a church in London as part of our work with lepra. What is lepra?
I have no idea.
Must be a charity. I was surprised to see how short she was. I shall watch some telly on Monday. That's John's beloved mother. A nice thought from her. Mm-hmm. Julie Aarons is saying, whether or not you support the monarchy, the tourism that it brings to the UK Treasury is huge. HRH Elizabeth II never really put a foot wrong in terms of her dedication to duty and service. Well said, Julie Aarons. Now, John also sent this picture, and we haven't talked much, if ever, about his dad. That the bearded fellow on the left is John's late father, Brian, with His Royal Highness Prince Philip. And John says, I do remember my dad showing the Duke of Edinburgh around. And again, I'm not sure where. John will probably put it in the comments. He's saying that the lepra is a charity to help fight leprosy. So he'll tell us, too, maybe where this photo was taken. His dad is the bearded one on the left. And he said his mother always liked beards. We're learning something about our families. This is a nice way to go back and think about our history, our families. Brian passed away, John says, in 2012. His and his mom's, John's mom's 42nd wedding anniversary. And John says he buried my dad on the farm and planted a tree on the 1st of June, 2012, and was on the water the next day with Lily. Well, it's leading up to the Olympics, no doubt.
Yeah.
And there is a picture of his mom with that tree. I think a fairly recent photo. So another nice family remembrance from John Emmett. Thank you for that, John. Stop me, Andrew or Julia, if you've got anything to add to these personal remembrances from our FOSI.
No, that's one of the things that listening to people on various radio and TV programs over the last few days, I think the passing of Her Majesty has triggered not only people's memories of how they've come across her or watched her during their lifetimes, but it's also triggered personal recollections of their own family and their own losses, and realizing that at the end of the day, the Windsors, the royal family, are a family.
Exactly
yes.
Right. And she was everyone's queen, and I think well beyond the Commonwealth.
Yes.
We all admired her since
yes.
She went on the throne officially in 53. I think her dad died in 52. So the year I was born, I've known no other queen. You knew of her father, right, Julia?
Yeah. Well, not really.
No. Well, you were born what, 33?
39.
Oh, 39. So yeah, you've been pretty young. Another nice memory here. We'll get into His Royal Highness Prince Philip. Of course, Phil the Greek, some sailors call him, I never did. Lived almost to be 100 years. born in 21, died a year ago. Famously keen sailor. Here's another shot of him with Uffa Fox. And that's in a Flying 15, isn't it, Andrew?
I think that's what it probably is, yeah.
And I'm not sure how well they did, but they sailed together a lot and had a lot of fun. And here is a memory from, we'll see if any of you can guess whose cheeky but fun memory this is. I got this morning from a Brit. With regards to Her Majesty, I think I must be the only person in Britain who never met her, never even saw her in person. I met the Duke a few times, and he was hilarious. Interviewed him once and asked, so you now know this is a journalist, comma, and he's alive, it's not Bob Fisher, comma, "Sir, why do you like the sport of sailing so much?" To which he replied, "Well, rather like carriage racing, sailing is a sport you can do with a hangover, and I like that." Any guess, Andrew, who sent that in this morning? First time I've heard him for a while. Heard from him.
John Robertson?
No, but that was, he's a Brit, not, I mean, Robos, is he a Brit or an Aussie?
He's a Brit.
He lives
I think he likes to think that he's an Aussie, yeah. But he won't.
Magnus the Magnificent sent that in this morning.
Yeah.
So it was nice to hear. I've talked to him since he went over to work for Grant Dalton.
We should talk to him.
Well, there's no reason not to. We're still remain friends. Well, he thought he was the only one who had never met her, but James Pleasance, the executive director of the World Match Racing Tour, and of course been on the show any number of times, he sent this note in. He said, "Hi, Tom. Sadly, I never had the pleasure of meeting the Queen, but she did stop by the Cowes Isle of Wight in 2012 as part of her Diamond Jubilee celebrations when I was running the Super Yacht Cup at the Squadron. We couldn't persuade her to join a race, so we moored the 62-meter Athos schooner on Trinity Landing as a backdrop to her arrival instead." And he kindly sent along, James, kindly sent along this video, which is 2.5 minutes long, which is fun. Again, this is Cowes 2012. Can you imagine that, Julia, for a president of either party in any place in the U.S. today? No way.
With dignity.
Well, I mean, just the celebration from the people.
I know.
So, Tom, just the person who's introducing you to that line is the Lord Lieutenant of the Isle of Wight.
Whom you must know.
I'm not quite sure who the current Lord Lieutenant of the Isle of Wight is, but I know he is an active, I think it's a he, but I might be wrong on that. But anyway, that's the Lord Lieutenant that receives when royalty's in town, in the county. Then that's one of the duties is for the Lord Lieutenant or the Lieutenancy to look after the visiting member of the royal family. And when it's the monarch, it's almost invariably is going to be the Lord Lieutenant rather than one of the deputies who gets that job to do.
Yeah, Gordon Smith commenting, that is what a Lord Lieutenant does.
Yeah.
What a good sport, though. I mean, she tooled around. There's Prince Philip next to her.
Yes.
And just the adulation, no surprise to any of us on here, especially in Cowes. And this is, we all recognize that street, don't we, Andrew? Beautiful.
That looks like coming outside the Pier View.
Pier View has been shut down, hasn't it?
No, it's still open. It's a shadow of its former self. It's turned into a pub serving burger and chips. But the Lord Lieutenant of the Isle of Wight is a woman. I remember now. I think her name is Sheldon. So it's great. We now have a number of Lord Lieutenants who are female, which wouldn't have been the case not so long back.
Well, thanks again to James Pleasance for sending that video along. And now we have a photo. Julie, you know who would have sent that photo? Any idea? I'll give you a hint. He's from Mid Yell, Shetland, up in Scotland.
Oh.
Mr. Gordon Sweeney.
Yes. And
Graham Sweeney.
Graham Sweeney, when Her
Yeah.
Majesty the Queen came to Mid Yell, Shetland. He snapped this picture on her tour of the UK, taken on Yell Pier. So again, another, nautical related, but with Lussiter House. Is that how you say that, Andrew?
Well, I'm not Scottish, but I guess Lussiter sounds good to me.
In the background. And that's thanks to Graham Sweeney, who's a regular. Gordon Smith, Graham Sweeney. Yep, Gordon figured that out. Nice stuff. Now we have Pedro's personal perspective. This, of course, Peter Stevenson, Pedro foiling sailor and he sent, no surprise, a bit of a funny one, a cheeky one. From the archives in 1992, the British royal tabloids were incensed by what they called their then PM, this is the Brits called him, the Lizard of Oz. This is from an article in The Age, in the Melbourne Age. And apparently, it was published in February of 1992. The British papers lecture the Keatings of royal, this is their PM, Mr. Keating, on royal etiquette. As the Queen returned home, the Australian Prime Minister, Mr. Keating, had the British media in a lather over his allegedly Republican-style speech, and for what the press regarded as a breach in protocol, tabloid newspapers splashed news of Mr. Keating's Parliament House speech in front-page reports. The Daily Express headlining its report, "Queen Sad at Insults." Carried a photograph of Mr. Keating under a second headline, "Australian Premier stuns the royals with a Republican jibe." And then you see in the photo there with his, you're not supposed to touch her, the royalty.
Have you got? I don't know if you're going to show a photograph of Michelle Obama with her arm around Her Majesty and vice versa.
No,
it's a famous photo.
It is a famous photo, though, isn't it? No, I haven't seen that. Graham Sweeney is saying, Graham's on here. He's saying Lussiter. I hope I pronounced that close, Graham. Means summer meadow in Old Norse. And Gordon Smith says she was quite happy when Michelle Obama did the same. Well, I don't know. But there's more to Peter's personal perspective. But Mr. Keating's speech, according to the Melbourne Age, was not the only issue. The Daily Star and the Daily Mirror both rounded on the Australian leader for putting his arm around the Queen while introducing her to officials. "Hands off, cobber," screamed the Star on its front page. The Daily Mirror sounded a similar blast, "Hands off," and it followed with, "Aussies don't give a about manhandling the Queen."
But you know what the 4X is about, don't you?
No.
Well, that's because there's an Australian beer called Castlemaine 4X. And so the advert was all about, so they had a series of adverts, which was all a play on not giving a 4X about. So that's where that came from. It was a play on an advert that was current at that time.
Yeah, the 4X beer. Okay, so that was a play on that advert.
Castlemaine 4X.
Okay, a good thing it wasn't a play on. We have a condom brand here in the U.S. called 4X. Let me see, Andrew, what's happened to your, did your lighting, you guys didn't have a brownout just now, did you? Your lighting's
no,
gone down a bit.
I think, Caroline, 1 second. Don't go away, caller.
Don't go away, caller. I'm good. Oh, there we go. I'm tuning you up here. That's better. I just went into my settings here and tuned you up at our end. Okay.
Yeah.
I just tuned you up at this end too. Now we got a lot of light on there. That's better.
Is that better, Tom?
Yeah. Well, Ed Worley, what else would you expect from politician? No class or decorum. Don't talk to the Queen unless she talks to you as standard protocol. Steve Gruber's reminding us maybe it's okay to touch the Queen if she touches. Yeah, if she extends her hands. We were told going into Buckingham that time, if she extends her hand, then you can. Otherwise, you just stand and nod. She was very gracious, and Charles wasn't there, but Anne was, and it was it was a lovely brief evenings hosted by the Royal Yachting Association. In fact, I think I told the story once before in the show. My sister Christine was with me, and we were staying at the Thames, at the Royal Thames, and we got in the car, and we all had passes that had been given to us by what was then IYRU, I guess, or by the RYA to get into this function. And we hailed a taxi, and the taxi came from probably the Hyde Park Hotel, or from the hotel next door, what's now called something else. And didn't give the pass, said Buckingham Palace, please. And he said, the nightclub? No, the Palace. He said, well, who are you, American, bloody American, the Palace? So I handed him the card, and then they took us there, and we got into the forecourt. It was very nice. But here's also from Peter. This, I thought, of all the photos we've seen from New York City, from the Salesforce Tower here in San Francisco, Julia, this was, I thought, the nicest visual tribute I'd seen in any of the cities around the world, which you all will know is Sydney and the Opera House.
Yeah.
Thanks again to Peter Stevenson for that. Now, while we're down under, let's go to Auckland. This is Her Majesty in Auckland in 2002. She was doing a tour, and of course, Prince Philip. Now, the guy on the right is a good friend of mine, a guy called Peter Kiley, who was the equivalent, I think, of the Lord Lieutenant, and maybe has I don't know if he has the same title or not, Andrew, but Peter Kiley, who's a lawyer and a mover and shaker, was a good friend and good helper to the America's Cup and kind of a government liaison on all levels down there, is showing the Queen across the viaduct. And I was there. It was a year before the Cup, but we were building the big bass club. Julia, remember that?
Yep.
So I wasn't in the, I didn't go out and mess around and didn't even meet her. But in fact, I'm not even sure I laid eyes on her. But there, of course, is Dino, who was then the skipper. This is leading up to the 03 Cup.
And Helen King behind Her Majesty.
Helen Clark.
Helen Clark, rather, yeah.
Helen Clark, the PM,
yeah.
Of course.
Yeah.
And you know who the gentleman is who was then the GM of Team New Zealand? Emma Blackman's dad, Ross Blackman.
Ross.
Ah.
Yeah.
And Ross Blackman's daughter, Emma Blackman, is married to Nathan Outeridge. So it's a family affair. But nice photo. So I thought we'd take care of New Zealand while we were in the Antipodes. Now, here's a photo.
Oh, yes.
That I got just before we went to air, and one of the original windsurfers. It's got the teak booms and everything. And that is, of course,
King Charles.
King Charles, you can tell.
Yeah.
King Charles III. Who knew that he was a windsurfer? Did you know, Andrew?
Nope, I didn't know.
I didn't either. And that we only know because Ted Ryman, who is a Brit living in Cape Town, sent that photo through just before we went to air. So I've got one last memory, but Andrew, let's go back to you for anything else that you might want to say on behalf of what you've done with the Queen, what she's done for all of us in the world.
Well, do you want another anecdote?
Please, by all means.
Well, this will involve not only Her Majesty, but also the Duke of Edinburgh. I used to be a tenant of the Duchy of Lancaster, a duchy, therefore of the Queen, and I rented 6,500 acres of moorland from her, and that's the reason why I was having lunch with her. And I'd been presenting to her and to the Duke of Edinburgh about the way that we've been bringing this moorland back to good condition. There were a lot of rank heather that needed to be burnt and cut down and things. But this is all to help with with improving it as a grouse moor. Anyway, the royal family know a lot about. They have at Balmoral. They have a lot of grouse moors, and so she knows her stuff, as does the Duke. And we'd done a rehearsal the day before, and it was about with various people were presenting to her other aspects of the North Yorkshire survey, including a guy who was presenting about some really boring subjects on the housing development that was part of her wealth. Anyway, she was bored. The Duke of Edinburgh was asking rather pointed questions of people and making very, very narky comments to people. So she was ready to fall asleep. He was giving people a hard time. Anyway, I had to present for 15 minutes to her, along with my gamekeeper. So I thought, how do I grab her attention? And so I told a true story. And it was because my family came from that part of North Yorkshire. My great-great-grandfather had been a Methodist local lay preacher. So he was like just a not a minister or a vicar, but he was a lay preacher. But also he was the master of the fox hunt, of the Goathland hunt. And so I told her this story about how I had a history back to these moors that she owns, and it was to do with the hunt and my grandfather, great grandfather, and she said, well, what happened? And I said, well, it was like this: the Methodist superintendent from the area came to the chapel where my great grandfather was preaching and said, his name was Ventris. Mr. Ventris, can you explain to me something? What would you like, Reverend? He said, well, I hear that I've heard disturbing information that here you are as a preacher of God's word and therefore presumably a lover of everything created by God, that you're also a master of the fox hunt. How could you possibly square away these two positions? And he said, well, why, it's easy, Reverend. How would it be easy, Mr. Ventris? Well, he said, if foxes weren't meant to be hunted, they wouldn't have been made to smell so strong. And anyway, so I told this story, and the Queen, who had been so bored about this property development stuff going on, she suddenly she woke up, she guffawed, the Duke laughed his head off, and we were in. So I had their attention for the next 15 minutes.
Well done.
But the interest that after that, when we broke up after that, they weren't interested in me as a tenant. What they wanted to speak to was the gamekeeper, because he was the man of the ground. He was the man who knew what was really happening. It wasn't me. I might have been writing a check or something. And it was interesting that their affinity wasn't. They wanted to talk to the countryman about disease in birds, about a tick, about all the different things that happen. Their interest was him, not me.
Mm. Amazing.
Nice.
Nicely done. I'll put Andrew in there. It's dark there now. What time is it in London? It's 22:02 there. And I wonder if this is the hour that they're closed, because they've taken the cameras off from inside the hall. Couple other comments here. Ed Worley saying the Queen represented the best attributes of the greatest generation.
She did.
How true is that?
Yeah.
David Richard Morris, that is Aussie amazing. He liked that picture on the graphic there on the Sydney Opera House. David James, I was lucky to sing for her in 1983 when she was in San Francisco. Interesting. David James. Morris Stevens, I love the story that Jackie Stewart, the F1 driver, told in a Scottish documentary. He was staying at Balmoral Estate in Scotland, her estate in Scotland, just after his third World Championship, and he was out to dinner with Princess Anne and Her Majesty. The weather turned bad, and he offered to drive them home, and the Queen looked at him and pleasantly told him that he was more than welcome to navigate. Apparently, she drove like a bat out of hell.
She likes to drive.
She likes to drive and was fast. Is that right?
So,
I never drove with her, so I wouldn't know.
I've seen a lot of references to swan upping, and Gordon Smith said that his father went swan upping with her on the Thames.
What does that mean?
What's that mean?
Yeah, well, swan upping. So the swans belong to the monarch. So I think part of that is maybe it's about counting the number of swans.
Yes.
So what do you do is because all swans belong to the king or queen.
Is there a tale behind that?
No, they have since the Middle Ages. All swans belong to the reigning king or the sovereign, the king or queen.
Yeah, but why?
And one or two other animals too.
I think sturgeon, the fish. I think that maybe that's the same with sturgeon.
Stingray missed your punchline when foxes weren't. If foxes weren't meant to be hunted, finish your punchline.
Well, in Yorkshire, in the Yorkshire dialect, you said, if foxes weren't meant to be hunted, they wouldn't have been made to smell so strong, which is they wouldn't have been made to smell so strong.
Well, I understood you better the second time. I mean, the first time with your accent.
Yes.
Yeah, she was a mechanic in the Army apparently during World War II. How much of that was photo ops and how much she really did? But
I'm sure she really did that. And the Princess Royal certainly would think nothing of of changing, of fixing a truck that she's driving with horses in it, mending tires, changing wheels on a motorway or anything. Absolutely practical.
She wasn't afraid to get her hands dirty.
No,
Unlike me. Thank you, Andrew. Stingray saying that was another great story. And let's see if anyone else, did I miss any, Julia, up higher up? Graham Sweeney made a bit of a joke. Do you think King Charles will get a ride on Sir Ben's AC boat, making him his foil?
Oh.
Oh, dear. I'm just going to run up because we did miss. Andrew, when you had a pub lunch with her, Gordon Smith is asking, does she eat pickled onions whole or does she cut them up?
If I remember correctly, I think she chased the food around the place. I don't think she really ate much at all, but that's my memory.
And Luca Craig is saying that, sorry if it's already been mentioned, he said, yeah, they're queuing up to 19.5 hours coming up to 10 p.m. in the UK. You said it's been something approaching 24 hours now. Is that right?
That's what I heard.
Well, an outpouring, and well-deserved, an outpouring.
Yeah, I heard that they were not closing.
Center yourself in your camera there, Julia.
Yeah, sorry.
There you go. Thank you.
They were closing access to the hall at 6:30 in the morning.
On Monday.
On Monday morning.
Yeah.
On Monday. So that's going to go all weekend.
Yeah.
Well, it's open again. There's a camera live shot.
But London I can't remember what the number was, but the number of people coming through the main stations in London, coming into London the last few days, I think it's gone up by 10 or even 20%. And with a drop in people commuting, they've been staying home. So it's been people from around the country all coming up to town.
Well, unless anyone else has something to contribute, I've got one from Andrew McIrvin. After this shot from Ted, thank you. This from Andrew McIrvin via Julia. Julia, since Andrew's not on, we're going to have lunch. He's going to be here at the Beach Street Yacht Club Wednesday night.
That'll be great.
And maybe have a little sing-along, in fact.
Yeah.
What a fabulous image, graphic.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. It's the best tribute I heard or saw.
Paddington Bear.
Paddington Bear.
There are the sandwiches. What are the jam sandwiches?
Yep.
That they talked. I played that clip a week ago.
Yep.
I think it was a week ago.
Yeah, you did. And the corgis. And the matching hat and the bag.
What are the flags or the something, Andrew or Julia? Flags being dragged on the.
I'm guessing bunting from I don't know, from the Olympics. I don't know what the bunting's to do with. I don't know.
Or the awards that the corgis have received.
What for biting people?
Gordon Smith saying it's marmalade. Yes, of course, marmalade sandwiches.
Yeah.
At least at first she demanded. Steve Gruber saying that he says that the Queen then the Princess was a car and truck mechanic. At least at first she demanded to enlist at 18. As soon as she was allowed, Stingray saying, yeah, he's heard that Beckham, that Bendit like Beckham has been in the queue since 0200. Wow. Fritz Mueller, yep. Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your thoughts. And we go back and have one last look there. Yes, Julie, would you stand in line for 24 hours? Could you stand?
No, I couldn't. I'm sorry. But
you would if you could.
I would if I could. Probably not 4 days, but overnight I'd do it probably.
Amazing. Okay, well, that's our tribute with thanks to Andrew Pindar. Andrew, can you stay? So you got to get on with life over there.
No, Caroline's in here as well, but she's fortunately got her earplugs in on her iPhone, and she's watching something on there. So I think I'm.
Well, we'll let you go. It's late at night there in London on a Friday night, and you've got a nice wedding this weekend in Cornwall.
And you've had a long drive today?
You had a long drive. I thought you'd fly down there, but you drove how long?
9 hours, he said.
Yeah, it's 400 miles.
Wow. And
on a busy Friday with the traffic was heinous.
Oh, yes.
I can imagine, especially with all this stuff going on. Luca Craig in Auckland saying the artist that created the painting of Queen Paddington and the Corgi was for the Queen's Platinum Jubilee. She was on the BBC. The artist was on the BBC.
Oh, that's good. I tried to find out who that was, and I couldn't read it, and I couldn't find it. But that was, she either knew them very well or thought she did, and in any case, loved her.
Okay, Andrew from Cornwall, live via Skype. Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. We really appreciate your coming on. And we'll
Thanks, Tom. Thanks, Julia.
We'll see you again.
You will.
Okay.
Bye.
Bye.
Lovely to have you on.
Ciao for
Thank
now.
you. Thanks, Julia.
Yes.
Ciao. Andrew Pindar, one of our two regular British Andrews, Andrew McIrvin, who's been on any number of times, the British surgeon and Secretary General of the IMA. But of course, Andrew has been in the service of the sport and Her Majesty. He's OBE, has been recognized by our sport and by Her Majesty for the service to life in the UK and to industry and, of course, to our sport, including by World Sailing. Thanks, Andrew, for that. Alan Long and lots of others are kicking in their appreciation as well. Move on to a special This Day in History. Julia, do you know what happened on this day, the 16th of September, 1942?
No. 42.
1942. Well, here, by way of video, is a clue. Have a look. Julia says, this isn't 42. No, it's not. This is a clue of what happened in 1942. This, of course, is the Cup Down Under.
They've won the America's Cup.
Jerry Jobson,
I made you a personal promise to do everything
1987.
I could to bring the cup back home to America where it belongs. So here it is.
Yeah, I think Hamish Ross has it. Dennis Conner was born on this day 80 years ago today. That video, of course, from the 36th America's Cup. Paul Homchick got it. Ed Worley got it. DC was born. And he's also said, Hamish has got a lot of these. Of course, this is September, so there's a lot of things going on America's Cup-wise in September, especially in the Northern Hemisphere. Yeah, it was horrible music, Alan Long, waiting on hold. While waiting on hold music for that video. But yeah, Dennis was born, DC, Dennis Conner was born 80 years ago today. Hamish saying that Puritan also won the Cup in 1985. And the Paddington artist, Ted Ryman, is saying, is Eleanor Tomlinson
Yes.
Julia? I think that means Eleanor Tomlinson, comma,
right,
Julia.
Right.
So here's, if you didn't get that clue, here's some others. Do you recognize the Armory in Newport and the late, great Bill Ficker at a press conference in Newport, Rhode Island for the 1980 America's Cup when Dennis was sailing Freedom and won? And, of course, lost it in 83 and then had the big comeback, celebrated comeback in Frio in Perth in 1987 on Stars and Stripes with Tom Wooden there just behind him and a celebrated crew of people. Brought the cup back on Continental Airlines on a big plane, went after stopping in San Diego, went on to Washington, D.C., and then, of course, the parade in New York City with Ronald Reagan. And he said, you know, Mr. President, we told you we'd bring you the cup back, and we did. And Reagan was very gracious and, of course, celebrated Californians, but he also liked things like the America's Cup. He liked success in all aspects of life. And Dennis, more recently, just skipping forward, you know, the rift with New York Yacht Club after the 83 Cup, that has long since been buried. In this, he was awarded the New York Yacht Club medal a long time ago. And not a long time ago, when what year was it? I can't remember now, when Commodore Potts. He was inducted in the America's Cup Hall of Fame at its inaugural class in 93. Connor is also a member of the first group of inductees to the National Sailing Hall of Fame. Connor's relationship with the New York Yacht Club, where he's been a member since 1980, has long since been repaired. Connor partnered with the club for his final challenge for the America's Cup in Auckland 2003. Quote, he is the ultimate team leader, unquote, said Commodore Potts, who sailed with him. And, quote, he never raises his voice, and he expects everyone to do his or her job in every situation without orders. His work ethic and preparation are unparalleled. His abilities to focus on boat speed, position on the course, sail selection, and location of every significant competitor are almost superhuman. And that's Reeves Potts, who sailed with him and Steve did a great job as Commodore of New York here in the last 10 years or so. And I can say, having done 3 campaigns, either running the event in which Dennis was sailing and winning, 88 notably, and 92 when Bill Koch won, but Dennis competed, and then 95 when I was on Dennis's team as his rules advisor. He called me up out of the blue and said, I need you to come out here. And that's after he had some not very nice things to say about me in 92. But this guy is a leader of men and women. I've sailed him a handful of times, and as Reeves Potts said, he does not raise his voice. He asks for suggestions. He is decisive, but he's fun to sail with. There's nobody that's more fun to sail with. And obviously, he's one of the great sailors in the history of the world, racing competitive sailors, obviously. But unlike some others whom we don't need to mention, but unlike, others, he's won in dinghies, the Star Worlds. He's won in the Tempest. He's medaled in the Olympics. He's won the America's Cup, 4 times? And he's won in offshore racing, big boat sailing, famously in the SORC days, the IOR days. And he's still winning in big boat sailing in SoCal in particular. And the guy is 80 today. He's not 100%, but he still is going strong. And we want to wish him a very happy birthday and best wishes for many more. How about you all? Stingray saying, I bumped into Dennis at San Diego Yacht Club one evening and bought him several drinks. Superb personality. I felt so honored. He probably was too, Stingray. I wonder how much New York Yacht Club regrets not have DC represent them in the 87 challenge. Good question. And of course, I was with the New York Yacht Club's, I was executive director of that America 2 challenge. And when Dennis found out, he went, he solicited New York to be their team in Frio, win it back. And there were others doing the same, notably the Texans and the Michigan crowd that with John Coleus that had come out of Courageous. And New York, because they were the big source, presumably, of money and sponsorship, New York said, now, Dennis, we're going to announce somebody else. And before New York had announced that, Dennis announced that he was going to sail with San Diego Yacht Club, and he and Malin Burnham, another amazing human being, got that challenge off the ground and then went on to win it in grand style. So you never know if they would have won for San Diego if they'd sailed again for New York. They may not have won. Is Dennis still involved in the Cup anyway in these days? I think he gets consulted. I think he does some TV. But not sure he does much more than that in the America's Cup. Time memorial, Bob Steele says. Yes, Bobby, absolutely right. Bush admitting to the mushrooms that he was one too. That's a funny story. John Sangmeister can tell you that story because he was on their B team, Julia, as you will remember.
Yes. And
Sangmeister, when they went to the White House, then Vice President Bush, this is Bush 41, president in the 41st president, took the B team aside, said, well, congratulations to you too, because they weren't getting they weren't getting all the adulation that the A team was getting. And he said, I'm like you, I'm a mushroom too, because the B team said, well, we're just mushrooms. We're kept in the dark and fed Scheisse, to use the German word. That nice picture of Dennis receiving the New York Yacht Club medal in, I don't know what year, but that's from a press release written by the esteemed Stuart Sturley of the New York Yacht Club. And life goes on. Dennis goes on. He's like the Energizer Bunny at age 80. We hope he goes on for another 20 years. Maybe he'll live to be 100. There at the wheel of
Aha.
the Yacht America, Troy Sears's boat that my mother's had the pleasure of steering as well. Any of you want to wish him a happy birthday, please do so. Ed Worley, I had the opportunity to meet DC and Tom Wooden with both great leaders and sailors. Absolutely. Bobby Steele, only 2 skippers have won the America's Cup, the Congressional Cup, and Star Worlds. Guess who? Yep. That is Bill Ficker. I mean, I just had them on that slide, right? Is that right? Bobby Steele, Bill Ficker, and where's my picture of those guys? I'll go back here to that. I don't need to hear the this day in history again, do we?
No.
I just go back to that picture of, there it is. I got it. Of Dennis and Bill Ficker. Is that right, Bob Steele? It's a good question. It's a good, yeah, DC and Bill. Bobby Steele is saying, thank you for that. Julia, any other comments that we get? Did you get your comments working again?
Yes, I did.
Okay. What a great guy. We'll miss him. On the racing scene, he hasn't died or anything, but we'll miss him on the racing scene because he, Tom Blackaller, and the people of that era, you talk about the greatest generation of sailors. And we've missed him in the Cup since '03. You just need these huge personalities and people who are willing to say what they meant what they said, and we'll miss him.
A burst of energy.
A burst of energy. Never knew what he was going to say. And still, when I go to San Diego and he knows that I'm down there, he'll call me up and say, let's go out. Tell me what's going on. And of course, this is when I was working with the Oracle team and with Ellison and Cootsie. I want to know what's going on. I'll be there he'll say, I'll be there at 5:30 in the morning. I said, well, I just flew in from Europe. I'm a little tired. He said, okay, I'll be there at 6. And he would be there at 5:45, waiting patiently outside in his SUV with the paper and with the coffee that he knew I liked, a latte with a little sugar-free vanilla in it. Yeah. Happy birthday, Dennis. Happy 80th. Best wishes for many, many more. Peter Taylor saying, yeah, he's a force of nature. Indeed he is.
Yep.
Okay, carrying on. Let's check in with the Resolute Cup. We were delighted to have current New York Yacht Club Commodore Paul Zabatakis with us a week ago, previewing that event, which has one more day to run at Harbor Court in Newport, Rhode Island. It runs through the 17th tomorrow, and they're into the Gold Fleet racing. But here's a little video from yesterday.
Today was our final day of qualifying. We started our races in the RS21, which we knew we had a little advantage on, and so we started out with a good series. We switched over to the sonars. We made some adjustments from our tactics yesterday, and we were excited to know when we crossed the finish line in the final race, we'd made the Gold Fleet. We're really excited to get racing. I know that I have what it takes to go up against these top skippers.
The 2022 Resolute Cup is sponsored by RS Sailing, a manufacturer of the RS-21 and other fine sailboats, as well as Helly Hansen, Safe Harbor Marinas, and Hammett's Hotel.
Nice. Icarus Sports is producing their videos. They had a little rough go. I was watching the live stream this morning. They had a little rough go getting into it. But here are the current standings. At least this is before racing today. It's now 17:25 out there in Newport, back east. I haven't heard the results for today. But these are the teams that qualified last night. See where it says gold over there on the right? Mm-hmm. So and it was interesting how many of these yacht clubs we actually talked about when we had Commodore Z on the other day. Eastern Yacht Club, San Diego, and Newport Harbor. Austin Yacht Club for you Texans. Mm-hmm. Seattle Yacht Club. Southern Yacht Club, Shelter Island. We talked about Shelter Island. That's Amanda Clark's club that was just down there in the interview. Southern Yacht Club, who won the big deal last year, didn't make the cut. So they're not going to be back there unless they get I don't know if they get a bye through because of the defending champion. I'll have to ask somebody at New York. Maybe one of you knows. but they didn't make the cup here at Resolute Cup. Now, I think from memory now, talking with Commodore Z, I think he said Southern has a bye for having won the Invitational Cup last year.
Yes.
And didn't Southern send some young sailors?
Oh, yes, he
isn't
did
that
say
what
that.
he said?
Yes.
I think that's what he said. So that maybe this is not their A team, but it's a good team of young sailors who are there. But
Yeah.
nonetheless, they did not make the cut, nor did some other really good clubs, Pensacola, Noroton, Stanford, and Fort Worth. Thanks, John Rogers. There's probably some more standings there. Then in the other group, there's the two groups, the blue group and the red group, Storms Trisel Corinthian Yacht Club. And I don't know if that's Corinthian here in San Francisco. There's 2 or 3 Corinthian yacht clubs, one up in Boston. There's one down in Texas. I don't know which one that is. Maybe one of you does. Lakewood Yacht Club, which is down in Houston. We talked about Lakewood Yacht Club, and interestingly, they have qualified. San Francisco Yacht Club, Larchmont, and just by the skin of their teeth, St. Francis Yacht Club qualified, Julia.
Even they're
And 6.
sixth.
Yeah, they're 6. They qualified. Not Carolina, not New York. New York gets a bye. Chicago Yacht Club, American Yacht Club, Houston Yacht Club, and my hometown club that I didn't think would be quite up to par, and they turned out not to be Muskegon Yacht Club. It's not my hometown yacht club, my home state yacht club. So that's what's going on at beautiful Harbor Court in Newport, Rhode Island. Final day of racing tomorrow. I think that's Corinthian and Marblehead. Baton Rouge is saying, yeah, that's my suspicion as well. We got Marblehead, you got Eastern Yacht Club, Marblehead, Boston Yacht Club, all up there. Terrific yacht clubs. And what a beautiful facility this is.
Oh, yes.
The Round Mansion up on the south end of the harbor, up on the hill. You know what the kids do there? Yeah,
They roll down the hill.
No, they take dinner trays like we used to do in the dorms. Back, we had a big hill outside of our dorm in Ann Arbor, and when it snowed, we'd take those dinner trays,
and slide down
sleds. They may have stopped that. I love to see it when the kids do that sort of stuff. I love to see kids. It so upsets me when we get, you too sometimes,
yes,
get upset at kids running around in the grill room.
I do.
Okay, not running around. I'm with you. But I love to see kids there. I wish we had more things for kids to do at St. Francis Yacht Club. I'd take that Domino's room right off the grill room, the bar, and the restaurant.
That's because you're not a domino player.
I know, but the domino players can play out in the front part. But at our club, when we grew up, we had pinball machines, ping pong tables, pool tables.
Have you been to the new junior room?
Does it have all that? I've not. That's a good point. Have you been to the junior room here at the Beach Street Yacht Club? We do. We do have a junior room here at the Beach Street Yacht Club. You can. I don't say anything. I'll wave my finger. Her Majesty the Queen. Speaking of great yacht clubs, have a look at this video. The Eastern Yacht Club is drone. This is where the Star Worlds are taking place. There's no audio with this, but a fabulous club up in Marblehead, the Eastern Yacht Club, where the Star Worlds are taking place. The 100th anniversary, sponsored by Bacardi. And maybe if you're watching on my Facebook page, I'm very fond of these two guys. John McCausland sailed with Dennis in the America's Cup, has won a Star Worlds in 2013. And Peter Sangmeister, our FOSI, John Sangmeister, in fact, Peter by now is a FOSI as well, I think. Peter Sangmeister is crewing with them. They struggled a bit in the early going, but they had a better day today.
Did they?
Yeah,
Oh, good.
according to what I saw a note from John Sangmeister. So bravo Zulu to them. John McCausland, who won, as I mentioned, the Star Worlds in 2013. And this whole group of people that are there it's just an amazing turnout of sailors for the 100th anniversary of what many would say is the best one design class in the history of the world. And you can argue about the Finns, and you can argue about the Dragons and a few others. But McCausland is a top bloke, and what a nice thing for him to take a young guy. And of course, Peter Sangmeister is a good sailor and a big, strong boy, and nice to see them doing well. But you see the bow? The Star Class did something kind of cool here. See the bow number?
Mm-hmm.
The sail numbers, if you're a former world champion, because the Star Class numbers are up in the 4,000s or the 5, I don't know where they are, but they're up there. They now, they allow former winners of the World Championship, Star Worlds, to get the year that they won the Worlds as their sail number.
Ah.
So McCausland, who won 2013, gets the sail number 2013, so hence his bow number, because they try to use only 2 digits
Yeah.
for simplicity for the race committee. And I think that class
They
is,
also have gold stars.
well, they have the Gold Star and the Hemisphere Star and the North American Star, the
Yeah.
blue and the red, and tell
Yeah.
me what. But that is a class of class.
It is. Absolutely.
Classy class. Very
Classy
cool
class.
idea, Ed Worley is saying. Other classes do this, John Emmett. I did not know that. I think it's a fantastic idea, whatever class does it. But I had only heard it in connection with the Star class. The wind was just touching 20 miles per hour in the gusts, and a few people, yeah, they broke some masts. And we had a color television, David James saying it at the San Francisco. Does he mean San Francisco Yacht
Yeah.
Club or San Francisco?
Yeah.
Which was a very cool. The parents could drink. Yeah, I think we got to do stuff for the kids, Julia. We don't have any kids here at the Beach Street Yacht Club, do
Not lately.
we? None that we know of.
I know.
Well, we've had Jeffrey Peterson. Some of those kids don't.
no,
cut- they cut-
teenagers aren't kids.
Well, and he's in his 20s now, replying to
Yeah.
vintage Star class is rocking too. Yeah, very cool idea. John, tell us what other classes from memory do that. Does the Ilka class do that? So here's some other one other shot from yesterday. Let's breeze on again. I don't have results from there today, but this was the results, the provisional results last night or this morning, in the top 10. And just I won't read all these names, but I mean these are all, for the most part, former world champions, all top Olympians, all top sailors. Fantastic job that this class is doing in a great regatta. We'll see how it went today, and we'll tell you about that on Tuesday. The Finn Europeans are also going on. Have a look at this video. European Masters. Big turnout in Spain.
Nice music.
Vicino al pin e ho virato subito verso destra. Poi con una buona pressione sono riuscito a rimanere comunque alto sulla flotta che è andata a destra e sono anche riuscito in velocità a sfilare i primi che erano a sinistra. E quindi ho girato la prima bodina primo, nella poppa ho perso 2 barche perché mi hanno passato tanto 75.
Good wind and was really shifty, but in the end was a good condition, good wave, and was really beautiful to sail today. This place is amazing to sail. There is good condition and also the place is really beautiful. And I really like to be here because also the fleets are really good guys.
Now, Finn sailor J. Frederick Bland is saying, finally some real sailors showing off in the Finn.
Yes.
I like the idea of a wooden fin for a start off, and I thought, and I spent a winter doing that up, and then but then I found out it was too slow. So there was a nice bunch of guys in New Zealand and really good fleet, close racing. So I thought, well, let's get into it, and so I was able to buy one of the Olympic fins. And now I'm hooked. Today was interesting. It was an up day for me in the first race, and then the second race I found out what life's like in the sewer, you know. And I was back there rucking it out with all the other guys, but they're all good competitors, and they're all very good yachtsmen. And I know these fins, they sail them downwind amazingly. I've got a lot to learn.
Tom Dodson is some kind of a sailor, a nice guy. This is the Europeans, the Finn Masters, the Europeans. It's not the worlds. Look at the turnout.
Yeah,
I don't even know
great.
the numbers. Yeah, and it's not blowing super hard. This boat is a beast in just about any condition over, say, 7, 8 knots.
Nice photo.
And you said, when I turned the mics down, I think you said nice music too.
Oh, yeah.
For a change. We got to talk about our home regatta here, Julia. The Rolex
Yes.
Big Boat Series is going on here at St. Francis. Started Thursday, and it runs. Why does it say the 14th? I guess they have measurement way, and it runs through Sunday. Or some beautiful photos from current and past, because I saw Danielle Forster, whom we had on the show.
Yeah.
Right, a couple times in
Yeah.
the last year. He did this big photo montage of non-America's Cup. Then we had him back for the big America's Cup show. I saw him at the club. He's not been here in 3 years, I think, since pre-pandemic.
Yeah.
He's delighted to be back. He loves this regatta. I think this is one of his older photos. I think that's Pack 52 Invisible Hand. I'm not sure. But look at, I just grabbed some of his photos, old and new. He's amazing.
That was on his website.
Sharon Green is just an astonishing photographer as well. I don't know if she's here, but I know Danielle is on behalf of Rolex. We'll have a lot of photos for the prize giving on Sunday. I'm going to help produce that with Bobby Sky. We will be live, switching the between the prize giving, between some photos and some videos. But how is that?
That's terrific.
For a Daniel Forster, amazing photo.
Yeah.
Love it. Okay, I have one other photo from the Big Boat Series that we're using in correct or Crutonic. We don't need to debate this. We're an hour and almost 40 minutes into the show, but I put this up on my Facebook page as my, I like to change my cover photo on my Facebook page every, 4, 5, 6 hours. And I put this one up, and it drew a lot of comment. This is from Racing on Thursday here yesterday on Adjudicator, a big boat, and people hanging out, leaning over, the old taco. We call that taco hiking. David James saying, can you get, we'll see if we can get Sharon Green on the show. Video froze. I hope it's still going. I'm seeing it here. Oh, you know what? Did it freeze?
Or is it not video?
Are you still hearing audio?
No, I'm not now.
Huh. Well, we'll see. Yeah, the video's not frozen here. Okay, refresh and got it back. Too many dark and stormies. So I don't know what you think of this taco hiking. That's the point of this image. All's well here in New York City. Yeah, sometimes, especially if you have an older device and you haven't cleaned out the cache, CACHE, in a while, you might get all bound up. Mm-hmm. Adjudicator, what do you think? Should taco hiking be made illegal, and if so, how do you enforce it?
Your tummy does.
Well, and the truth is, are you making that much of a difference in terms of riding moment by hiking that way instead of just see the gentleman forward?
Yeah.
Who still's got his torso, as we all do. You have to keep your torso inside the lower lifeline by rule. These guys got their head. We all put our head outside the upper lifeline. That's fine. This guy's just squeezing out there. They must have just tacked. Here comes somebody probably from the leeward side coming over to sit here as well. Mm-hmm. This guy's torso's through the upper lifeline. But this taco hiking is, ridiculous. How would you enforce it if you made it illegal?
Taking pictures.
Keelboat sailing makes you old. I think that's Jay Frederick Bland. Alan Long. I don't know what you all think, but I put that in Corrector Crutonic because it did get so many comments on my Facebook page when I posted it. Couple other videos, so some Bravo Zulus here because there's just some cool stuff going on in our sport. But notably, Sail GP has announced their schedule, some of their schedule for next year. They got a lot of events planned for next year in Sail GP. Season 4 calendar. They don't say where, but it's going to start here in the States like they did with Chicago. on the 17th to the 18th of June 2023, after ending this year's here in San Francisco. Then they'll go to, I think, Chicago again, but I don't know if they've got a bid from Chicago. And then these are the events that are solidified. Then event 5 in Italy, Spain in event 6 in October, Singapore in January 2024, Australia in Feb 2024, New Zealand in March of 2024, and that one I think is in 2024. I think that is to be in Auckland. And then Bermuda is the final event. No, it's not. There's 2 more after that in 2024. Now, I don't know why they quite did the graphic this way. Here are the events where there are venues not spoken for. And I should have just put the list up in order and said, well, this one's spoken for, this one's not. But you can see there's still a fair few venues to get filled in. And whether the final one in 2024, Grand Finale, Julia, is going to be here, doesn't look like it. It looks like this June 22, 23 is back here in the States, probably San Francisco is my guess. And then I don't know about this one. That could be someplace else where there's a lot of money on offer for the final $1 million cash prize. So that's the announcement just out yesterday from SailGP that several of you sent along to me, and the wording that came along with it in the release. Many of the cities returning for season 4 do so as part of multi-year deals, highlighting the growing, this is a SailGP press release, highlighting the growing level of commercial confidence in the global league after only 2.5 seasons into its existence on the sporting calendar. Further cities in the season 4 calendar will be announced in the coming months.
Well, they have done well.
Yeah, I mean, they're going to have 14 events, it looks like, next year. Now at the halfway mark this year, SailGP season 3 continues next week in Andalucía, in Cadiz, in Spain, for the near, I don't know what company Near is, but somebody will. Near is the sponsor of the Spain Sail Grand Prix before heading to the Middle East for the Dubai Sail Grand Prix, presented by P&O Marinas on November 12th through the 13th at Mina Rashid to complete 2022. But season 3 continues. 2023 will see the league head to Singapore, Sydney, and Christchurch before the grand finale here in San Francisco next May. So that's the end of the season 3. Doesn't look or sound like Julia necessarily coming back here for season 4 unless San Francisco does a deal. Morris Stevens speculating that June 2024 could be Canada, then finally in San Francisco, maybe. But we shall see. They've announced that. And just as a wrap up, I think I should play this video that is a GoPro video. A lot of you, Julia, you like this too. A lot of you like this GoPro recap of, what was it? This is from Saint-Tropez, but there was a GoPro recap of one of the previous events as well that many of you like, so I thought we should play that here.
Welcome to Saint-Tropez for the Range Rover France Sail Grand Prix.
Réveillé, pas endormi, demi-lune à qui je crie. Arrêtez car c'est la vie, on sait jamais alors. Respire les problèmes qui nous mènent nus. Y en a toujours d'autres, on continue. Pour maintenant, on fait la fête en chantant. Viens concentré, tu me vois courir. N'arrête-moi pas, car tu peux pas. Tu veux me joindre? Embarque, c'est ça. Pas de force dans la balance, car si tu tombes, c'est quand t'apprends. Pour maintenant, on fait la fête en chantant. en chantant.
You like that?
Yes.
I did too. I like those GoPro videos, and I like that they are 16:9. They're widescreen, so they fit easily on our little project
Right.
here, rather than the vertical videos, the so-called reels on Facebook, or the TikTok videos,
Yeah.
which are vertical, which are portrait instead of landscape. If you send us a video, please try to do. I mean, I'll take whatever you send us, but please try to do it horizontal, in landscape rather than in. Now, speak of Saint-Tropez, this is coming up. Look at this. Ah, wow.
Yes.
C'est super. C'est entraînant, c'est fédérateur,
That's 100 years.
une épreuve mythique.
Plenty of sailing here in Saint-Tropez, but I'm loving it.
It's very tricky here.
Finir la journée au top 55.
Fastest boats in the world.
Beaucoup de vent, c'est magnifique.
That's coming up in just a little over a week, 10 days. It runs into October. That was a nice video produced by our good friend Gilles Martin Raget.
Oh, yeah, it was
about
great.
that regatta. So we'll be following that and see what Andrew McIrvin, Julia, has to say about when he gets here. On Tuesday night, he gets here.
Yeah.
And he'll be with us up at the Stag Cruise. And now some crouton is putting comments up, so I'm not going to go to the comments. And we have just one in the Whiskey Tango Foxtrot here in the D block, just one. And this was a bit of a tongue-in-cheek submitted by, see if you can identify him, Julia. Any idea? From a few years ago.
No. Looks familiar enough. Is that Jody?
Jody. And he sent that when I asked for, anybody that had wanted to make a contribution to the show about Her Majesty. He said, yeah, I have this picture of me. I took her out on a Hobie Cat or on some kind of a catamaran. And that's me on the trapeze while she was driving. I don't think so, Jody. So I put it in, John Emmett saying, I guess that was a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
Yeah, Stingray, yeah, I saw that video that that Luna Rosa put out. I didn't run that video because it was a bit croutonic, but we'll see. We'll keep following it. We keep trying to find out if there's a French team. Several of you saying, oh, I'm in touch with them, I'm talking to them, but so far, nothing formal, nothing serious. Well, it's probably maybe serious, but nothing that you can really put your teeth into so far as the French potential prospective French America's Cup team is concerned. That brings us to the finish line, Julia. And any other comments? Better grab a couple others here. Replying to Gordon Smith, John Emmett, I gave up Lifeline. Oh, this guy who's back giving us aid, some croutonicism. Replying to Gordon Smith, I'm just going to read it because we're getting spammed, which doesn't happen very often.
No.
I gave up Lifeline sailing, which used to be my full-time job, Steve Gruber saying, because I got tired of trying to push through wires through my stomach to my spine. It was fun to untie your rail neighbor's shoes to get them to hike harder. Yeah, and somebody made the comment about, you have to do taco hiking if you're going to be in the Melgus. What was that, 24 class?
Yeah.
Okay. Julia, your witness.
Yes. Join us in this lovely venture by following, and sharing.
And comments welcome are too, even in replay. If you're watching this in replay, as most of you do, we appreciate any support we get on Patreon, whether it's $1 a month, $100 a month. Some people give us more. Patreon.com/join/Sailing Illustrated, because this is viewer-supported media. We take very few advertisers, sponsors, because we like to be able to say what we mean and mean what we say.
Mm-hmm.
And the only person who gets to wave their finger on this show is Julia. My co-host and landlady and Commodore of the Beach Street Yacht Club will nip in. We'll have one more look there in West Mr. Hall, as there is something like a 24-hour queue to pay final respects to Her Majesty the Queen. For all of you who contributed to this show, thank you very much indeed. Really much appreciated. You can see them trying to keep people moving through there because, of course, when you have a 24-hour queue, I hope their weather stays good. But thanks, everybody, for contributing. Have a great weekend wherever in the world you are. And thanks also to the people, as usual, who give us video and audio and images for the show. Julia, any final thoughts?
No, I think it's a lot of things, a lot of emotions all week, and we'll put them to rest on Monday.
Yeah, Monday's going to be tough.
And
it'll be an interesting day.
Yeah.
A lot going on, too, here on this side of the pond. Thank you for a wonderful show. Maura Stevens is saying, thank you. Bless Her Majesty for everything she gave to so many. It's that she gave to humanity. We could all maybe take a page out of her proverbial book. Reminder, no show next Friday. We'll be back Tuesday, of course, but next Friday I'm tied up at Tinsley Island for the Stag Cruise, so no show next Friday. But we'll see you on Tuesday. Hope to see you then. Have a great weekend with the ones you love. Enjoy the funeral for Her Majesty on Monday. And sail fast, sail safe, and have fun. Ciao for now.